Hey there, today we're going to be installing some ASG Auto BRIGHTLINES Crossbars on a 2025 Honda Passport. This one happens to be a trail sport, but the install process should be the same for any of the trims. So let's get started. So for the install, it's going to come with the included hardware screws that you need, but there are a few things that you'll need. A T15 Torx bit, which will be used to remove the screw holding the end cap pieces on. And then you're also going to need a T20 Torx bit, and that's going to be to remove the security screw inside the rail. And then you'll need a Phillips screwdriver. Here I have a bit that I'll be using with my tool, and you'll use that to actually attach the crossbar to the mount. Okay, future Casey coming in. You are also going to need a Phillips head screwdriver that is about this size, that has the 90-degree bend, because once you get these bars installed, because we have to leave the screws up underneath loose for best fitment, you're not going to be able to fit a normal screwdriver up underneath that, so you're going to want something like this. I don't have anything like that, so I'm going to use a bit with a wrench, and we're going to make this work. However, if you're doing this install, prepare better than I did and make sure that you have just a small Phillips like this to make sure you can get up under there and tighten those up. So I'm not going to film me attempting to tighten these up like this, and we're going to just assume that you're not going to do it the way I'm doing it and you're going to do it correctly. So back to the install. Another thing you'll need is either a plastic trim removal tool or a flathead screwdriver. I recommend the plastic tool if you can. This will be used to pry up the plastic end piece. You can use the flathead, you just have to be a little more careful. So since this is a taller vehicle, you're going to need either a step stool, a ladder, or I'll probably end up opening the doors and stepping up on the inside to give me some room to get on top to work. Another thing I recommend is having a towel or a blanket. Ideally, you'll start off with a clean vehicle. If not, just make sure that you clean out the roof rail. But also I recommend a towel or a blanket to lay down when you're doing the install to protect the paint and the sunroof. So definitely get one of these. You also, of course, need the installation manual. So I'm going to open the trunk, put all of our parts in there, and we'll get started on the install. All right, so as we can see here, we have the two crossbars and the four mounting pieces. If we look closer at these, once you install it, here's where you're going to put the two screws in on the bottom of these right here. Slide these back in, close that up, and then you're good to go. And also, if you look, there will be an L and an R indicating which side of the vehicle you need to install those on. So make sure that you keep an eye on those and make sure that you install them on the corresponding sides. Also, if we look at the two crossbars, they are identical. However, there is a front and a back. This side faces front. There's gonna be a sticker here. So you wanna make sure that that is the front. So when you install it, that sticker is toward the front on both of the crossbars, so just keep that in mind. These birds are loud. All right, so as you can see, I've laid out the crossbars and the mounts on how I want to install in the vehicle. This is the right side of the vehicle, this is the left. So I got both of the right side mounts on the right side, left on the left, both stickers facing forward. So we're gonna go ahead and install the crossbars, make sure these are mounted correctly and tightened up and ready to go. We're gonna do that, and then we're gonna move to the top of the vehicle. So we're gonna do that right now. Also, something to mention, these will be popped out in shipping. However, if you are like me and accidentally close that up, just grab your flathead or your plastic trim removal piece and just pry that back out. So I'm gonna do that real quick. So the kit will come with these two screws with a point to them. You are not going to use these, they just come with it. So just put those off to the side. So one thing to note, if you look, one side is not going to be adjustable, but then the right side is going to be adjustable. So once you get up there and you get the fitment in there, you want to make sure to tighten these up after you get it installed. You want to tighten enough so that it stays on, but loose enough that you can adjust it to make sure the fitment's perfect. So just keep that in mind. The left side of it, you can tighten up. Right side, leave a little bit loose until you get up there, and then you can tighten it back up. Once you get these put together, we're going to move up to the top of the vehicle, get the end caps off, and get these things installed. So let's go. All right, so on both sides, there's this end cap. There's a little Torx screw right here. Like I said, it's T15. So you're gonna grab that, loosen that up. This one. The process for taking this off is the same on both sides. I'm just gonna show you one side. It's exactly the same. Just make sure you do both at the same time and you'll be good to go. So one thing to note is that this is a singular piece. Technically it's two pieces, but it's for the sake of removing it, you want to pry on this bottom black piece, not this painted piece at the top. So I'm gonna show you that right now, and this is where you'll need your pry tool or your flathead. Just be very careful. Make sure you get up under here. To help, if you grab it, there are tabs on this far side. There's 3 tabs. Once you get this popped up, you're gonna wanna pull back, but to help you get started, you can pull back and you'll see it creates a space back here. So if you wanna do that, just to kind of loosen it up, get some movement in there, and take your pry tool and just get started. Try not to damage this rubber piece at the bottom, but you should be able to get in there and just pry gently while you pull back towards the back of the vehicle. And as you see it popped up. There's two little things that are holding it down. So when you're prying it up, you're actually pulling those out of the hole. So I got the first one in the front, or in the back rather. I'm gonna keep putting pressure up until it comes right out. So like I said, there's two little tabs here that go into these holes, but there's a little slit at the back one, or sorry, the front one, towards the front of the vehicle, that allows you to pull towards the back of the vehicle. So you want to pull back and up at the same time. Super easy. Like I said, it's the same process for the other side. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, so here's where you're gonna want to grab your T20 Torx. And if you look in here, there's a security screw in here. And so you just want to remove that on both sides using your T20, and that'll allow us to slide the crossbars through the rails. So we're gonna do that right now. This is where you might want to stand on the inside of the back seat so you can get a little bit more visibility. All right, so that's the first one. Same process for the other side. Okay, once you have the end caps removed and that security screw removed, now you're gonna wanna grab your crossbars. Again, they're both the same length, so it doesn't matter which one you grab. And so this is gonna be the tricky part. So if you look closely here, there's a little metal piece in here that just keeps that thumb screw in, and it's gonna slide in this rail, but you're gonna make sure that the metal piece is inside the rail, not on the outside. So once you do the install, you'll see what I mean. What we're essentially gonna do is slide. There's gonna be this piece that's attached to the mount, and then there's these little almost ridged piece right here. This is all going to go inside the rail, and there's, like I said, there's these metal pieces. There's one on this side, one on this side. Just make sure that's up against this and inside the rail, and that's going to create the pressure to hold it and help keep it seated in there. So ideally you would have 2 people doing this. It's just me today. Take your time, try not to get too far ahead of yourself, and also just make sure that this side faces front. Just make sure that's facing the front of the vehicle. So if you take your time, make sure that's facing frontwards, and that these metal pieces are up against this and inside the rail, and you'll be good to go. So we're gonna get that moving and get both sides pushed up and see where we're at. So as you can see, definitely helps to have 2 people. You can do it with 1. That's why I said just take your time. You have to push little by little. Also, you're gonna wanna loosen up these thumb screws to allow more space, so when you do push it, they're not gonna bind. Just make sure you loosen those up. Keep working your way down. Again, making sure that the metal piece inside there is inside the rail. I'm gonna move the other side and keep working. And then once you get them in there and everything's in the rails, it'll free up and you'll start to be able to move them down. I'm gonna get this one pushed back and then work on the other one, get it in there, and then I'll show you how to line it up and how to finish the install. All right, so again, as you can see, you could do it with 1 person. You have to kind of keep going side by side to get it to move. And one thing I'll notice is that you do have to kind of push down the mount so that it fits in that track. So if you saw me as I was scooting it in, once you get it in, it's fine. But just to get it all the way in that track, you might have to push kind of push it down, make sure it's still lined up. So now that they're up here, you'll notice that there are two little dots on each side of the rail, and they're really hard to see if you got a flashlight, if you do it in the daylight. And then there's arrows on the mount, so you want to line up that arrow with that dot on all four. And then once you do that, you just want to use the thumb screws and screw those up tight. I got them lined up on this side. I'm gonna screw the thumb screws kind of finger tight, move to the other side, do the same thing, and I'll come back here. Okay, so I've got all four lined up to those holes and finger tight. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tighten them up fully on all four, then I'll come back in and kind of shake these a little bit, just in case it needs seated a little bit better, because we want to make sure that it's nice and tight. So when you're going down the road, it doesn't, you know, move at all. Or if you have a cargo box or anything on it, you don't want it moving around and potentially coming off. So, and that's also why there's that security screw back in the back as well as the front. Even though you have the end cap on there and it shouldn't come out, that security screw is going to help just in case it does loosen up. We'll reinstall that here shortly after we get these tightened up and nice and secure. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, at this point, I got the mounts tightened up as tight as I feel comfortable with. Do a quick double check to make sure you didn't mess up. You want both of these to say R for the right side of the vehicle, other side to say L, and then you also want to make sure that sticker on both of the bars themselves are facing the front, which in this case they are, and I didn't mess up, so that's good. But if you remember, we left the right side, those two screws at the bottom, we left those loose in case we needed to adjust. And in this case, we did need to adjust all the way in. And we also wanted to keep those loose so that when we were tightening these thumb screws, we allowed for a little bit more movement to really get these seated in there. At this point, once you have all the thumb screws tightened down, super tight, you want to take your 90-degree Phillips screwdriver that I definitely had and mentioned earlier in this video. Make sure you tighten those up real tight, and then these are essentially good to go. And then what I would recommend, once you get it installed, drive it around. I would check it first I check it maybe the next day after you drive it, check these thumb screws just to make sure they're tight. And it's just generally a good idea to make sure that whatever you have up here is tight periodically anyway. If you have a cargo box, you're gonna make sure that's tight. And so that's just normal maintenance. But once you get all these tightened down, you want to take these covers and you want to reinstall them on the bottom of the mounts here. So we're going to do that now. And these are pretty easy. You'll know the way they go, but they do have these tabs at the top and they'll slide in the other side just like this. Slide them in there and then you'll snap them back up and you're good to go. Once we have those installed, we're now going to take these bigger screws with the T20 Torx and we're going to reinstall those into the inside of the rails. All right, once those are installed, you're going to want to get the end caps, those plastic end caps, get them back installed, and then grab your T15 Torx bit, put the screw back into that, make sure it's tightened up, and then you're essentially done with the install. So we're going to get that done. Just make sure you get the right ones. You'll know, but just make sure. So remember, these have these 3 tabs on the side that goes back into the rail. So you want to angle it down to get those tabs in, and then you can push it straight down. So I'll show you that right now. Make sure you clean it up while you're in there. So you got those 3 tabs in there, and then you can push down, or you can give it a little slap. Make sure that's seated down in there. And remember, it'll have a little bit of play back and forth until you get that screw in. So we get both of these pushed down in, then we'll get that screw in there. I'm gonna grab these. Where did that go? I'm gonna redo that. All right, so we're almost done. Grab your final T15 Torx screw and your bit, and we're gonna put it right back into this plastic piece to secure that down. Okay, and that's all there is to it. Pretty simple, straightforward process. Just gotta make sure you have the right tools. Again, helps to have 2 people whenever you put in the actual crossbars on, but it's definitely doable by yourself. Huge thank you to ASG Auto for sending out their BRIGHTLINES Crossbars. Again, this is a 2025 Honda Passport. I think they look great. High quality aluminum material, holds up to 165 pounds. Like I said, just make sure that you tighten everything down, check periodically to make sure that everything's still tight just from the vibrations and whatnot. Install process is pretty easy. Just take your time, make sure you follow the instructions, and you'll be good to go. So again, thank you ASG Auto for sending these out, and have fun.